When Rex marched east to raise funds for his campaign to Rome, he was greeted with open arms. He was made a minor lord in the rich Kushan Empire, serving his needs nicely. However, even so far from Rome, Roman war parties managed to find his fief and raise it. Rex had clearly caused quite a stir in faraway Italia. For now he made himself scarce, travelling the well-guarded roads east, joining the many merchants who made huge profits connecting the western and eastern worlds. "I really think it's all gone to his head," Agasicles said, gazing up at Rex atop a trudging old elephant. "You'll deny him a little flair? It's his money anyway," Eadfrith said. "Yes, I'm quite aware of that, thank you. Yet if we are to be gathering coin for a great endeavour, which I am not convinced will be entirely safe, then why are we funneling our profits into the pockets of shady exotic animal traders?" "Boss's orders, mate," Pullo remarked. "Don't you start with all that anyway. The lad's had enough strife already. Just let him sit on a damn elephant for a bit, if that's what makes it better." "You don't see me stopping him, do you? I should take a leaf from my loyal companion's book and keep it all to myself, eh?" "That's the spirit!" Pullo gave the Greek a hearty smile and threw him a bladder of questionably spiced wine. Agasicles passed it on to Eadfrith without second thought, from where it mysteriously ended up being spilled along the trail. The party was marching back to Rex's base in Nura after a very profitable run on a trade circuit to India. With the wealth amassed on the trip, minus the cost of an unhealthy elephant, Rex would be able to start building his own personal army. As they approached Nura, it became obvious that Kushan was not a safe place to do it. The people of his village emerged from crevices and copses for miles around, as Rex felt the heat of the ashes that remained. "Captain, these marks are Roman boots," Eadfrith reported. "Of course they are," Rex snapped, sliding down from his elephant haphazardly and tumbling into the warm mud. Eithna was there to help him up, but got only a dismissive grunt and a glare. "I am sorry, Rex," she said. When there was no reply, she added, "I had nothing to do with this. There are no spies here." "Sort of thing a spy would say, eh?" Agasicles quipped, although he was not brave enough to meet Eithna's gaze himself. "We need to get started," Rex concluded. "The Romans want to fight me. So let's go get ourselves an army." Some were pleased, some were worried, but all followed the order to march south into the lands of Rome's most able enemy. Hello there and welcome back to Rex Romanum. Right now we're heading down to the south into Parthian territory for a couple of reasons. One reason being that the troops we can hire here, the Parthian serfs, aren't like all of the serfs we seem to get out on the steppe and to the east, where it's just one unit in the tree and you've just got a load of peasants. In this case we can actually upgrade them, and you can even upgrade them all the way up to the top of the Parthian tree and get the noble swordsmen and elite archers. So that's the sort of thing we need. We need to grab loads of these guys so we can then, in the future, buy our way up to having a powerful army. While wandering around, I decided to engage this little group of deserters to try out my new toy. I bought an elephant, but it doesn't quite work as I expected. You can't ride on top of it and just shoot arrows down at the enemy like I was planning. Instead, we appear to have been eaten by it or something, and now we're just playing as the elephant. We can still use our bow, but with limited effectiveness. Can't really see where we're going with these ears in the way. The one last chance for this being useful was the thought that it might just annihilate enemies as you run through them and do loads of charge damage, but not really. So there you go, the elephant is just a much worse, slower horse. I think it has more health, that's the one upside, but it's so big it'll probably get killed by arrows if you actually try to use it. So never mind that, we'll switch back to a normal horse. We had another battle right after this one, where I was chasing down some bandits or something, and they actually managed to ambush me. This would probably be fine, but we're not going to be helped by the fact that I'm insisting on using this bow. I'm still trying to train up my archery skill just to become a more balanced combatant, but it is hard to actually get any hits with the low archery skill that we have already, and in this situation, it's pretty much the worst weapon. Would be a lot better off here if I still had my lance, because it's hard to fight on horseback with a sword. The range is too low, like with this guy, just can't quite hit him. But anyway, in this fight, since we have numbers on our side, we had more than double the enemy's numbers, we can survive this ambush even with a not particularly good performance. There was an example of the sword finally actually getting used. Lost a few guys, the enemy lost a load more. But yeah, since we're in Parthian territory, we are going to be able to recruit up a pretty good army pretty quickly. The other one thing I want to do is find the Parthian faction leader. You might remember I had this self-imposed semi-challenge of just finding every faction leader and doing a quest that they gave me, so that we have something to do out here essentially, and to represent Rex networking with all of the biggest and boldest of the realms. Had to go quite far east to find this guy, annoyingly. On the way I was stopping at all the villages to pick up supplies and more troops, which wasn't always a safe thing to do. Sometimes the villagers try to ambush you, but in this case the triple team of Rex, Agasicles and Eadfrith quickly cleans up that little ambush. There was one archer left over there. The thing to do here would be to just run left and right, because the AI can't hit you while you're running to the left and right if they're firing arrows, but with a big shield we can do things slightly faster by running right at him. We eventually find the faction leader, Volagases. He's a massive lord, like the emperor of the Kushan Empire. He has absolutely loads of fiefs. He's a very powerful individual and a nice guy to know. Apparently I've been raiding his caravans, so he already doesn't like me. I don't remember actually doing that, but I suppose it might have happened at some point. Now the quest he has for us is the one where you have to hunt down a bandit base. An annoying one, because whether you can do it or not depends on whether you find the base, and in this mod in particular it's quite hard to find bases. You have to pretty much walk right into them for them to appear on the map. I did have a clue though. I knew that near Ctesiphon, the Parthian capital, there were a load of raider parties. So now we're going into a long period of me chasing the raiders around, doing the odd battle against them to grab some money and experience, and just hoping we find the target. Back and forth between the rivers and fields of Mesopotamia, Rex and company marched. It was all good exercise for the many new recruits. One evening, Pullo came up to Rex beside the fire. Rex demonstrated that he had a full cup already. "Just wanted to talk to you about the new boys," Pullo said, slumping down on the burnt grass. "You needn't worry about them, Pullo. I've asked Oliver to oversee their training," Rex said. "Not really worried about that. I was going to say that you've got, like, a few dozen here. Do you know what it will take to get Rome and have your way with the high politicians there?" It wasn't the question Rex wanted to hear. "Whatever it takes, I will give it. That's why we're out here sniffing for horse dung on the wind right now. I will get to Rome." "Oh, I have no doubt you'll get there. Thinking ahead though, you'll want to be alive at the time, and that's going to complicate matters greatly. You think it's impossible? I don't pay you for your military advice," Rex said, throwing another orange over his shoulder into the waiting mouth of Grey Mountain. The beast consumed it noisily as Pullo replied, "Me, Eithner, Oliver and Snobjob, Eadfrith. Yep, pretty sure all of us have been to Rome. You haven't. Rome is the most heavily guarded place in the world, and Roman people get really, really angry if you show up with weapons without a great excuse. I have a great excuse. When I said excuse, I kinda meant you need to be giving them something, like new land or a new leader." Pullo was giving Rex a wide smile. "You want me to take over the Empire?" he said. Pullo burst into choking laughter, drawing the sympathy of Grey Mountain, who started trying to pick him up with her trunk. Soon he was able to both wrestle free and get his breathing under control. "You are the cheekiest little... That's what you were thinking? Someone else? You have to make it a big political thing. Then people will go along with it. The Emperor's a great guy, I've heard, but he's got enemies. Enemies who can convince people that Rome needs a change. If we could make the change happen, then, in the messy courses, you could get whatever you want out of Rome. So we start a Roman rebellion as a distraction?" Rex's disappointed tone betrayed his disbelief. "It'll be easy. Romans really hate Romans, let me tell you. Think about it." I couldn't find that bandit base, and I even went so far as to cancel the quest to try and get another one. I ended up on a different quest for a guild master, hunting down some deserters, and here, while I wanted to train my archery skill, these enemies were keeping their shields locked tightly together and I couldn't really achieve anything. Eventually though, as I drew them closer to our line, their morale started to break and they started running about all over the place, and now that their little square has been shattered, we can start taking them down. Still struggling with the old horseback swordsmanship, but gradually getting used to it. So the upside to doing that quest is that it gives us reputation with the town because it was for a guild master, and that eventually allows me to buy a business here in Hatra, so we've now got another brewery under our belts, making us a bit more money over time. Next up I went north to check in with old King Bagadatta up here in Armenia. He had one of these quests where you have to send Aliver off to do something for a while. We are going to accept the quest since we don't really need Aliver right now, and we'll sort of come back to the consequences of that in the story in a little bit, because first I wanted to talk about what I did during the wait for Aliver to come back, and it was to go and look for that bandit lair again, and I actually found it. The text is blue, suggesting it's a quest objective, but I'd already cancelled the quest to go after it, so that means now what I need to do is find the guy again and get the quest a second time so I can then go and claim the money for defeating the bandit lair. Took me a really long time to actually find Vologases here. Eventually there we have it, we've got the quest again about a week later. Now we can go after this bandit camp. The first question is, will it just be a glitchy thing where we can't actually do anything? And the answer is no, we've got an actual stage to fight this time. We start off sitting in this pond. I immediately start climbing up and out of it, but our party are wandering off somewhere despite my order for them to follow me. I'm not sure the AI can get out of the pond, it seems. Once we're up here we can see there's a cave in the distance with arrows being flung at us from it, so that's where we need to go next. I'm going to go around the outside of this river essentially and try to get to them while our allies are stuck down in there just wandering around unable to follow me. The upside to having them down there is they're distracting the enemy. As the enemy are trying to shoot arrows down at our party, we just run up behind them and take them out. Or at least that's how it works for the first guy. The next couple of guys do see me and start attacking, so we'll have to try and just do this on our own the more traditional way. Luckily, with the enemy really spread out along the river, it's not too hard. We're not just fighting the whole bandit party at once. There goes another guy. Now I'm going to run towards this cave to try and secure it. The risk is that with these caves, they can just spawn enemies and more guys will appear all around me. But so far, we're safe. We secure the cave and run back over to the edge of the river. More guys are attacking our party. The first guy didn't react quick enough to me attacking him there and goes down. I go after the second guy, but there's two more guys right behind him. I take an arrow, cancelling my attack. Pretty annoying. This is a dangerous situation fighting while under fire. However, because the enemy happened to be in a pretty much perfect single file line, as I was fighting the guys at the front, the guys at the back couldn't attack me, and we end up getting through all of them. I can see more guys over by that building on the other side of the valley. First I went to go and check down in the river again, but when I turned around to go towards that building, more guys had spawned right here next to me, so lucky I turned around in time. Now we're going to try and take them all on, once again having to run about and run sideways as much as possible to not get shot by arrows. Things go pretty well actually, and we take down these three guys easily. Now after this, there was a guy on my radar who was down in the river, and I was trying to find him. I wanted to shoot an arrow down at him, but as I peer over the edge here, he shoots an arrow up at me and I lose a load of health. That's not very useful. Still no sign of my party. I think they're kind of stuck over by the initial deployment zone. They can't really get to this point in the river, which is actually pretty annoying because I'm struggling to take this guy down. My archery skill isn't quite good enough to fight at this range, but the other guy's is good enough. Now I've lost loads of my health and I've pretty much messed this up because I just lost most of my health bar fighting that one guy who we didn't really need to fight right now, and now I'm bleeding out, so I'm going to be constantly losing health. Our only choice is to just go on a mad rush against the surviving enemies, who all kind of aggroed onto me at once, which is not very helpful. Luckily, this little fight against these poorly equipped enemies goes okay. Now I need to rush up to that hut where there's another group of enemies waiting. Enemy number 1 goes right down, his weapon was too small to hit me. Enemy number 2, same problem. Enemy number 3, well, I thought it was going to be the exact same deal, but no, he hits me with a club, and that's the end of that. So we've failed the attack. Not what I wanted to see. We're going to be missing out on some money and some reputation. However, at least we technically did the quest, because as we've seen before, failing bandit base attack missions does actually get rid of the bandit base anyway, so we've solved the problem locally and we can move on in terms of the story. We're going to be skipping ahead in time quite a bit at this point. First of all, because I wasted loads of time trying to follow up on this little clue. There was something hinting that you could get some kind of legendary weapon in Armenia by finding a certain old woman, and I spent ages trying to find out what this was and was unable to discover any further leads. So anyway, while I was in Armenia, I came to the conclusion that in order to accelerate the progress of this series, and indeed the progress of me playing the game, because this is very compressed right now, multiple hours of gameplay per episode, I'm going to have a bit of a training montage in order to give Rex more heroic stats, just to hopefully accelerate everything we're doing and try to get us out of this constantly searching for money and searching for things we can do rut, which we seem to have become stuck in. We'll go back west and get stuck in to more of the action. After a long march from the royal halls of Armenia, Baghdata threw up his arms before the mountaintop retreat ahead. The Eagle Fort, where great warriors have trained since the dawn of time, and where I learned the skills that took me from one end of the world to another in search of a worthy foe. We sure we want to get the same training he did? Agasicles said, leaning closer to Rex. Keep in mind that he's been lying about everything he's ever mentioned, including being the king of Armenia. Nonsense. He is the king of Armenia, Rex said with a grin. The party entered the fort and found several warriors training there already. The addition of several dozen more made for a bit of a squeeze, but all needed to become experts in war if Rex was to succeed, and Baghdata was eager to do his part. While the pseudo-king seemed unable to best many of Rex's own retainers in the bouts, he maintained that he was unimpressed with their skills. None of you are worthy to even fight alongside the eagle's spear, let alone wield it, he shouted, rolling around on the ground to glance away a storm of wooden practice arrows. The men were more impressed with Rex, whose skill at arms was already world famous and was only improving over weeks of daily intensive training. Some of the old warriors living in the fort actually did seem to know a thing or two about fighting, and honed his skill beyond that of a champion and into that of a so-called Eagle Master. There have been few Eagle Masters in the history of our order, Baghdata explained through his bandages. But every one of them achieved great deeds. As you know, one of them became a king not so far away. There was something seductive about the endless barrage of lies, and somehow everyone began to feel proud to have been there in that freezing fort. Oliver returned from his most recent trip to Rome with important news to relay, albeit through Aethna. The talk in Rome is that there is a challenger to the Emperor, she explained over a wanting mountain breakfast. Commodus is the heir right now, but he wasn't always. The first choice of Aurelius was bullied out of the city, but people still remember him. Maximus, Oliver says he is called. Now that's what I'm talking about, Pullo cheered. Name even rings a bell. It'll be our ticket into Italy. I'll bet on it. Agasicles took Pullo up on his claim, while a general air of agreement permeated. They would find Maximus and use his claim to power in Rome to legitimize their own plundering of the city, be it coin, fine art or people each member of the group was looking to acquire. Better than just storming in as Rex and Baghdata had previously imagined. The Armenian king gave Rex a fine blade, a huge coat of horse armour, and a thick round shield as parting gifts. "The hero's path is long and winding," he began. "I'll see you at the other end then, shall I?" Rex said with a smile. Bagadatta struggled to hide his delight at this response, but just about bid the group a dignified farewell. After powering Rex up a little bit, I decided to go back to Kushan just for a trade run and for a quick visit to the Kushan Emperor, because I want to give him back the fief he gave to us. He's not enormously happy about us leaving, but we just showed up for a bit, took a load of money and left really. Our adventures in the Kushan Empire were limited but very profitable. There's not much going on over on that part of the map, but yes, lots of good trade runs and very good rent we got from Nura. With that, we're now going to start heading west from Uspa, the old Alan city that we've been to a couple of times now. The next city over is Tanais, and this place was surrounded by loads of bandit parties. I wanted to take a couple down, not only to get even more money, but also to grab some prisoners. Many of them had prisoners attached to them, which we can use to expand our own party, in particular getting cav, which are otherwise hard to acquire. In this battle I was trying out some archery yet again, and not achieving an enormous amount. I didn't actually hack Rex's weapon skills forwards in my little training montage, so he's still just as bad, but my weapon mastery is higher, so it's easier to train now. Another thing I want to do from now on is start playing around with the unit formations. So you can see here, I formed up all of my Parthian swordsmen, most of whom are at the max noble sword rank, the type of infantry that took me down before the first time I saw them. They're even better than the Roman infantry and a lot more expensive, I must say. Anyway, yes, we form them up into a square, which means they keep very close together and are more effective in melee. As for Rex, the new sword I've given him is even shorter than the sword I used to be using, so it's actually now even harder to fight in melee on horseback, but still, at least it's more powerful, and on foot will be a bit better. The enemy are sending the old guy against our square, they're just getting killed, and as we advance, the men stay in formation, and I think this helps keep your guys supporting each other and not just breaking up and fighting all over the place where sometimes guys get isolated and taken down. The enemy also rout at the same time, which helps out, and broadly speaking, we annihilate these bandits and can then grab a few captives from the party, grab some loot, etc. I went back to the city to sell off loot, and then I wanted to do a quest for the guildmaster to see if I could get some reputation, but the only quest he had for me was to wait for a quest in a few days, which was a bit confusing, so we'll just leave him to it and forget about that. Went back out for another battle. This time it was a load of bandit archers sitting in a river. A curious formation from the enemy. At first I was sitting here just shooting back at them, and you can see my horse is covered in arrows, but now that it's an armoured horse, we can tank arrows, so we are going to be a bit safer to just hang around trying to be a horse archer. My infantry eventually charged down into the river to finish this off. It was meant to be timed with this cavalry attack coming from behind across them further up the river, but just didn't happen. Didn't get the timing right. Doesn't really matter because the enemy rout. But still, we're learning. Rex is starting to get some actual battle tactics under his belt, and I'm sure they will be essential later on. After this, I decided to head further west in search of somewhere where I could actually get some reputation and throw down a new business since we have lots of money. At Gellinus there was a quest which was to basically just go back to Bactra, escorting some cattle. I thought, well fine, it's going to be incredibly boring, but it will also be extremely easy. And we can even throw in another trade run at the same time by buying up some stuff here and at Tanis and Uspa and selling it in Bukhara and Bactra, where the prices are always very different, and doing the same thing in reverse. Because I'm a very nice YouTuber, I'm going to cut out the 10 minutes of stoppy-starty running. The cattle don't follow you if you run off too quickly, so you have to do it in little bursts, and yes, nothing happened along the way, so here we are back after that. We just need to pick up some money and our reputation. The problem we had though was that after I asked the guildmaster about buying a business, he says that apparently the guy who owns this town doesn't like me for some reason. Never heard of this guy, but we seem to have ticked him off in some way. Maybe we took him down in a tournament long ago. That means we can't buy a business here without doing a quest for that guy. We're just going to ignore that and save the money for my next destination. That destination is Rugium, one of the Germanic towns that we stopped in briefly before on the way to a tournament or something, having to sleep over at various castles on the way to maintain our morale since it's a bit of a long journey, but now we're on the final leg. At Rugium I happen to already know that we can pick up a companion who will allow us to start the next phase of our campaign, which we'll be talking about in the next episode. In the Forum in Rome, Regni was looking with tired eyes at the two legates marching up to the palace, their mission to hunt Rex apparently over. She knew they had not succeeded. There was word in the markets of goods traded with papers bearing the mark of the Outlander, also known as the Champion, also known as Rex. All her messages and those of the Emperor had not reached him, and indeed seemed only to have endangered him. She could only wait. It wouldn't be long before more concrete news of Rex's whereabouts and intentions would shoot through Rome like a wildfire. That is all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to all of the OfficiallyDevin patrons. Rex is going to stir up a rather large war on the continent in the next part of Rex Romanum.